Today we're going to start with chapter 1.1, and this is called Rational Numbers. There are just a few definitions that I want you to understand before we start our lesson today. So I want you to go ahead and put these into your notes. All right, so the first thing that you wrote down here is integers. Read to me what an integer is. What is it, guys? Positive and... All right, so notice once again it says whole numbers here. So I've given you a few examples, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Can anybody else give me another example of what an integer would be? What do you think, Harmony? -5, good job. Who's got another one? Charbel?
50.
50, all right, he gave me a positive whole number. What's another one? Taylor? 93, okay, last one. -3. Very good. All of those are integers because they were positive or negative whole numbers. Now I want you guys to read me what this says right here. All right, so remember this. You would never say that you had positive $0 or that you had negative $0. That doesn't exist. It's just simply the number 0. It's never going to be positive or negative. There's something else I want to talk to you about. Everyone repeat after me. Rational number.
Rational number.
Okay, so this is a number that can be written in A over B form. Whenever B, this doesn't say equals 0. What do you think that says? Doesn't equal 0, okay? Because it's got a slash through that equal sign. So whenever B doesn't equal 0. So you might be wondering, what in the world is this A over B form? Basically, all that means is it's in the form of a fraction, okay? So who can give me a number that is written as a fraction? 2 over 3, okay? 2/3. What's another one? 1 over 2, which is 1/2. Who can give me one more? What do you think?
5 over 10.
Okay, 5 over 10, which also would equal 1/2, okay? Now, this is an example. It could be an integer or a terminating decimal. Do you guys know what that word terminating means? What do you think?
It would terminate the decimal, meaning terminate means you would get rid of it.
You get rid of it. What basically terminate means it ends, okay? So think about if their job was terminated, it ended. It was no more. So a terminating decimal would be something like this, 0.75, because it ended. But if it went on like this, 0.757575, did that end? No, what is that called? Repeating. That keeps going on and on. So this right here would not be a rational number because it goes on and on and on forever. Okay? So that's a little bit right there, the difference between integers and a rational number. Write this down for me. The word that we're looking at here is absolute value. That's like the video that I just showed to you, okay? It's the distance between the number and 0 on a number line. Read me what it says there in the red. The absolute value of a number is never negative. So it can never be negative. Here's why. It's just telling you how far away it is from 0 on a number line, okay? Then it says here the absolute value of x is written as this. Here's what it looks like. Absolute value simply just looks like 2 lines, and then it has that in the middle. So that right there says that is the absolute value of x. Can anyone tell me how I would read what this says right here with those lines beside it? What do you think, Brody? But what does this right here say? The absolute
Value
of,
3.
no, not of 3. What's it say in there? The absolute value of -3, okay? So basically what you're doing on a number line, I can see this right here is -3, okay? So I am trying to see how far away it is from this 0 right here. So I could use the number line and hop over 1, 2, 3. How many spaces was it from the 0? 3. So the absolute value of -3 just says it is 3 spaces away from a 0, okay? How about this next one? This says the absolute value of 2. Nehemiah, what's the absolute value of 2? 2. All that says is it is 2 spaces away. So if I was to start right here at this 2, I go back 1, 2, and I'm now at the 0, okay? Next up, the absolute value of -5, just the girls, what is it? 5. So can I ever have a negative absolute value? No. Once again, right here, it says the absolute value of a number is never negative. So basically, all you're doing is you're going to take the number that's right here, drop it down, but without the negative sign. Does that make sense? So it's just asking you how far away or what the distance is between the number and 0 on a number line. Now we're going to do some problems. Now anytime that I have problems like this up here on the board, it's going to be very similar to the problems you'll find on your homework tonight. It'll be very similar to the problems that'll be on your quiz next Monday, 1 week from today, and on your test next Wednesday, about a week and a half from now. So right here, read to me, everybody, what does this ask us right here? To find the absolute value of -3. What is it, guys? 3. Okay, you're going to write it directly underneath, and then I want you to draw a box around it. Now, this is how I'm going to have you do all of your homework, once again, all of your quizzes and all of your tests. So we're going to practice in class so that you know exactly what it is that I'm looking for you from home and on quizzes and tests. Let's go on to the next one. Javaria, what's the absolute value of 7?
7.
Very good. And then box your answer in. Now, even like tonight on your homework, when you come to it, you will see this right here is the original problem. So when you get to your homework, you're going to write the original problem down on the paper and then go ahead and show me what the answer is. Now, we haven't done anything with a fraction or a mixed number yet. Does anyone think you might know what the absolute value of 1 1/4 might be? What do you think, Hunter?
1.74.
No? Who's got another guess?
1.
Nope, not just 1. What do you think?
1.25.
No, you don't have to change anything. You're trying to change it to a decimal. I want it written exactly as it is there. What would it be? Taylor, do you have a guess? You're just going to drop the number down that's in there. What is it?
4.
Not just a 4. What's in there? What's inside of these right here? If you look, this says absolute value. What number is in the middle of that, guys? 1 and... So guess what drops down? Exactly what's in there. The answer is 1 1/4. Okay, don't make it more complicated, because if I was to have, just think of it like this: 0, 1, 2. Okay, so this right here, you guys were telling me you were at like 1 1/4. This is 1, 2, and 0. How far away is this from 0? It's how far? 1 1/4. Okay, so don't make it more complicated. Next up, what's the absolute value of 5.3? 5.3. Once again, you're just dropping down the numbers and removing any negative signs. What's the absolute value of -5/3? 5/3. You're catching on. Good job, guys. And the final one, read me what it asks us for the absolute value of -2.6. Just the girls. What's the answer? 2.6 is correct. Now I want you to check your partner's paper and make sure that they have boxed in all 6 of those answers. All right, your next section says copy and complete the statement using less than, greater than, or equal to. Once again, because I'm doing examples like this, the same exact kind of examples will be on your homework tonight, it'll be on your quiz on Monday, and then your test on Wednesday. So my goal is never for you to feel surprised about what I want you to know. We will always go through and practice what it is that I want you to know. If you look at these two things, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to figure out what the absolute value is, okay? So let's look right here. What is the absolute value of -2.5? It is 2.5. Now, here's how you're going to show me work. You're going to drop down what the absolute value is directly underneath it. Next, you'll also drop down, that's just the line right there. Now, here's something that's going on. This is a fraction. Is this a fraction right now? No, what is that? A decimal. In order to compare the two, you need them to be in the same form. So you either need them both to be a fraction or you need them both to be a decimal. Does anyone know how to turn 3/2 into a decimal? What would it be, Charbel?
2 1/2.
Not 2 1/2. What do you think?
1.5.
Okay, 1.5. Now you might say, how in the world did he get that answer? Here's what this means. 3/2 means 3 divided by 2, okay? If you need to, you can use your paper right there. There's extra room to work this out. So that goes into it 1 time. 2 goes into 10 5 times. Once you get to a 0, you know you're done. So your answer is 1.5, and that's what you want to put over there. Does that make sense? You always have to make sure that you put it into the same form. So now that I can see, I've got 2.5 and I have 1.5. Does anyone know what sign should go there in between the two of those? What do you think?
This way?
Okay, I need to know what it's called, not just this way. Who knows what that sign is called when it goes this way? What is it? You read it from left to right. So it says 2.5 is greater than 1.5. So just like whenever we read anything, like on a piece of paper, we read from left to right. So this says 2.5 is greater than 1.5. Now, this down here, what you did is you showed me work. On your homework, you must show work. I don't want you just throwing a sign in there and taking a guess. I have to know that you understood what you were doing. Now, I didn't put my answer yet into the original problem, so I've got to go ahead and bring that up. And here's what it says. The absolute value of negative 2.5 is greater than 3/2. And you're going to go ahead and box in your answer. Let's go on to problem B. Javaria, is there any kind of work I need to do with this 9 right here?
Which one?
That first 9 right there.
Oh, no.
Nope, I don't have to find any absolute value, so I'm just going to drop it down. Is there any kind of work I need to do with this?
Yes.
Yes, what's the absolute value of negative 9?
No.
Just plain old 9. So what is the answer that should go in the middle? Equals. So when I read it from left to right, 9 equals the absolute value of negative 9. Let's go to the next one. Nikki, is there any work that needs to be done inside my absolute value lines? Okay, what needs to be done inside the absolute value lines? What's the absolute value of 1/2? You can keep it as a fraction. What's the absolute value of 1/2? Someone want to help her out? What is it?
The way that I would do it is that's 50%.
All you do is you read inside there, it says 1/2. Now here's something that's interesting. Notice there is something outside. Can I just dismiss a negative? Can I just say, I don't like you, you can go away? No. Guess what I need to do with that negative?
Change it to
I need to drop it down. Okay, that negative is not inside my absolute value sign, so that just simply comes straight down. Okay, now I'm going to bring down this line. Next up, Nikki, what is the absolute value of 1/4? 1/4. Okay, all you're doing is you are basically removing the absolute value lines and making sure it's a positive. It's 1/4 away from 0. Now, guys, looking at that, most of the time you will need to make sure that you have the same denominator. But there's one reason why I actually don't have to find the same denominator this time, because the answer should be very obvious. Does anyone know which one is the tinier one? Which one? The negative number is always smaller than the positive number, okay? Think about the video that I showed you. If you have negative money, that's definitely smaller than having positive money. So read me from left to right what this right here should say. Go ahead. Negative 1/2 is... Very good. So now let's read our original problem one more time. Negative, the absolute value of 1/2 is less than the absolute value of 1/4. Okay, I want you guys getting comfortable with how to read these kind of problems. Let's go on to the next one. Is there anything I need to do with that 7? Nope, so what should I do to it? Bring it down. Next up, is there anything that needs to drop down automatically? What? Okay, the negative sign that is on the outside, I'm just going to go ahead and drop that straight down. Now I'm going to go on and do this part right here. What is the absolute value of negative 4.5? Keep it the exact same number. Don't change the form. What is it? The absolute value can never be negative. So it's going to be drop down 4.5. Okay? Now looking at this, there's a simple way to figure out which one is tinier. What one's tinier, guys? Negative. The negative number is always smaller. So just the boys, I want you to read it to me from left to right. 7 is greater than negative 4.5. Good job. And then go ahead and just bump it up, okay? So tonight on your homework, when you get to a problem, once again, it looks like this. You're going to write it down, and then you must show the work, and you must box in your answer, okay? Any questions about what I am looking for? Okay, let's go on to the next one. Now, each time there will be modeling real life, and basically that says this is kind of like a real life scenario of something that could actually happen. So looking at ours right here, it says the summit elevation of a volcano is the elevation of the top of the volcano relative to sea level. Does anybody know what sea level is? What is it?
Sea level is where the sea begins.
Okay, it's where the sea begins. Okay, so just to kind of help us out, I'm a very visual person. Let's go ahead and draw a sea. Reading on, it says the summit elevation of Kilauea, a volcano in Hawaii, is 1,277 meters. So just kind of, once again, to help us with a visual, it is above the sea level because it's positive. Okay, so what was the elevation of that? How many meters? 1,277 meters. And that was Kilauea. So let's just go ahead and mark it right here that we know that's which one that is. All right, is that in a positive or a negative direction? Positive. It's above the ground, so we know that that was positive. Reading on, it says the summit elevation of Loihi, an underwater volcano in Hawaii, is negative 969 meters. If it's negative, is that above ground or below ground? It is below ground, okay? So I'm going to come down here. And right about this point, I am reaching negative 969 meters, and that's Loihi. So now that we have kind of a visual, let's look at what it's asking us. It says, which summit is higher? Which one of those is higher, guys? Okay, try to say the name. Repeat after me, Kilauea. I had to look it up to see how to say that because I wasn't quite sure myself. But let's go ahead and write that out then. This is part of our answer. Kilauea. Let me see if I spell it right. Is higher. Am I finished? No, there's one more question. Always make sure you go back through and just double check and read to see, is there any other part that I'm supposed to be answering? The next one says, which summit is closer to sea level? So if we know this one is right here, it's closer to sea level. Which one is closer to it, guys? The underwater one, Loihi, okay? How can you tell that that is closer than Kilauea? Think about it. It's kind of like what we learned about that absolute value. You're just trying to figure out how close it is to zero. That sea level, that's at zero. So it's only 969 meters away, while the other one is 1,277 meters away. So for the second part, you're just going to write directly underneath it, Loihi is closer to sea level. Then what should I do to my answer? What is it? Box it in. Always make sure whatever your answer is, you always box it in. Okay, that just makes it easier to find. In our class, we will grade and trade homework. So it helps the other person who's grading your work and also me when I'm looking for it to find your answer very easily. Okay, so staying neat is going to help you be very successful in math. Now, what I've got next is a Thinkpairshare section. These 6 problems have a lot to do exactly like what we just went over, and they're going to look very similar to your homework for tonight. So what I want you guys to do is just take a couple minutes, and I want you to try to answer these on your own. If you get stuck on one, just skip it, and we'll talk about it here in just a minute. All right, hopefully you've had a chance to do a few of those with your partner. Let's go ahead and look at the first one. Which of the following numbers are integers? Cameron and Taylor, what did you guys come up with?
9, -1, and 15.
Okay, they only said 9, -1, and 15. Guys, why would 3.2 not be an integer? It's a decimal. What about -0.25? Also a decimal. So that is correct. Was there anyone else who got the same answers that Cameron and Taylor did? Fantastic. Now listen, if you didn't, that's okay. Erase it and fix it, because these notes are here to help you with your homework tonight and with tests and quizzes when you're studying. So always erase it and fix it. But even if you didn't get it, that's okay. Just erase it and get the correct answer now. This says, what is the absolute value of a number? Who can give me what that definition is? Hunter, what'd you get?
The distance between 0.
distance between 0 and what? A kitten?
On the number.
Between 0 and
The number.
0 and a number on the number line. How many of you had to go back and look at your definition in your notes? That's okay. That's why we have notes, is to help us out, okay? The absolute value of a number is the distance between 0 and a number on a number line. Can we ever have a negative absolute value? No, you cannot, okay? Next up. Write a negative number whose absolute value is greater than 3. Brody and Harmony, what'd you guys get? Okay. The absolute value of negative 6 does equal 6, which is greater than 3. Okay, fantastic. Charbel, what'd you write?
I was gonna say that I wrote a long number, just
That's fine.
a long negative number.
What is it?
I don't know exactly what I would say, some of it.
Just tell me what you wrote down.
108 decimillion. What?
We'll just stick with negative 108, and that is correct. That would be greater than 3. Who can give me one more? Hunter?
-4.
All right, -4. That's just barely bigger, but that is correct, okay? Any of those are fine. How many of you would say you wrote one of those down? Who would say you had a different one? Okay, that's totally fine. Anything. But could I have put -2?
No.
No, why not?
Because it's not 3.
Because it would have been less than 3. Good job. Next one. Let's have a Lexus and Sierra. Compare the following values. Do those two look alike right now? No. One is a fraction and one is a decimal. So let's go ahead first off. Let's get rid of our absolute value sign. So instead we'll just drop down the 3.5. What is the absolute value of -7/2, girls? Just drop down the fraction. What'd you get? 7/2, okay? Now this is like a second step. Which one did you guys switch? Okay, they switched the 7/2. So I'm going to drop down 3.5. And what is 7/2 if I change that to a decimal? It is 3.5. So what should go in between those two? Equals, all right? So everyone, go ahead and read me what the original problem said. 3.5 is equal to the absolute value of -7/2. Great job, girls. Raise your hand if you got that correct when you did it with your partner. All right, are there any questions about it? I don't want to move on if you don't understand it. Okay, let's go on to number 5. Which expression doesn't belong with the other 3? Who wants to try this one for me? Nehemiah. Let's look at the first one. What does the first one say? A?
Absolute value of 6.
What is the absolute value of 6? 6. This next number?
6.
I'm just going to keep it as a 6. Next number? -6. And the next one?
Absolute value of -6.
What is the absolute value of -6? 6. So Nehemiah, which one did you say didn't belong? -6 or C. How many of you figured that out? Excellent job. All right, one last and final problem. This is kind of similar to our modeling real life. An airplane is at an elevation of 12 miles. A submarine is at an elevation of -10.9 miles. Which is closest to sea level? Okay, so once again, anytime you want, you can always use visuals. We know this one is going to be up here at 12 miles. And we know this one is going to be down here at -10.9 miles. Guys, which one is closest to sea level? The submarine, okay? Then it says the word explain. Why?
It's closer to 0.
Okay? Because 10.9 or even -10.9 is closer to 0 than 12. What should I do with my answer?
Box it.
Box it in. Okay? So this right here is your homework for tonight. I want you to see it's going to be on pages 7 and 8. Just look carefully right here where it says to do all of the problems. You're going to do all of them. Then this is just 37, just 41. So each night you will only have 10 problems. So just check at the end to see, did you do all 10 problems? And that is the end of 1.1.